Thank you, Doug. Recently, I believe in our 9 o'clock service, I think that's where it was. Those of you that were here can correct me if I'm wrong. I passed on a piece of wisdom that had come to me from our speaker tonight. I think I may have provoked the situation. That may not be true. I'm not a provocative individual at all, but I may have provoked the situation by bringing up some humor relating to our institution of higher learning at College Station. And that individual responded by asking me the question, what do you call an Aggie after graduation? And I didn't know, and she said, boss. And we have a boss that is with us tonight. This very bright and personable, tough and compassionate friend is Michele Whitecotton. How long have you been in the church now? Okay. And you live way out on the edge of Tarrant County, don't you? So you drive a long way to get here. About 30 miles in order to be here. She's a wonderful friend. Professionally, she's been a business unit finance manager. She recently retired from that position, a very demanding and strenuous opportunity, which she did very well, which taxed her HR skills as well as her financial skills. But she's a treasure, and she has been a treasurer for St. John the Apostle, also serving on our finance team, and she's walked with us through some of the trenches of some of the things that financial leadership has had to do over the last 5 years, and she has been a splendid and delightful person, a hero for us as we've done so much recovery and reorganization, as we've learned so much together, and the victory that we have celebrated this fall and as recently in our Council of Stewards Sunday of voting to underwrite the full proposed budget for 2020 without cuts is all a product of the hard work that we've done, the generosity of our people, the growth we've had, and Michele Whitecotton has been in the center of that. She's tough, she's compassionate, she has invited me and Linda to help love on a precious loved one in her journey who was struggling with a battle for her life, and we celebrated her life. She can have a serious conversation with you, she can have fun with you. She's willing to listen, and we're so delighted to have the woman who is helping teach with Dwayne Butler a class for us here in the fall and winter season. Our speaker tonight, wearing her Texas A&M ensemble, Michele Whitecotton.
All right, did I turn it on right? Okay, y'all can hear me, good. I'm not used to being mic'd, so just bear with me a minute. It's great to see everybody here tonight. After Thanksgiving, going into the Christmas season, it's always a busy time. And so I know that this is an important thing for you to be here on a Wednesday night in a busy time. I want to share with you a little bit about my journey. I did not grow up in the church. When I was growing up, we went to church occasionally, but, not that often. So when I was growing up, the only thing I wanted to be was a jet pilot, and not just a jet pilot. I wanted to fly fighter jets, the F-16s, the F-22s. However, when that age, we won't mention the year, women could not fly fighter jets, but I figured I will find a way to do it. So I thought, okay, we'll go to the Air Force Academy. So I basically did everything I could, my high school days, extracurricular activities, grades, you name it, applied to the academy. Was able to get a nomination, but I didn't get the appointment. In case you're not familiar with the process, every congressman, they can nominate 10 people, but only 2 of those get appointed. So I wasn't one of the 2. Needless to say, the 2 that did get appointed were, let's just say, the parents were very involved in the congressman's office. So we'll leave it at that. So after that, I thought, okay, not going to be able to go to the academy, so I thought, not a problem. We'll go to A&M. You know, they have a phenomenal aeronautical engineering program there. So I was like, all right, we'll go the engineering route. So, but before that, since I paid for my own way in college. I went to Amarillo Junior College first, because it's a lot cheaper to go to a junior college, as y'all know. So went there and did really well, and then went down to A&M. And, you know, the first test I took it came back as a 56. Now, mind you, this is a person who is used to having pretty much A's and a few B's in there, so this was devastating. So I thought, okay, we'll just study harder. The next one was a 36. So it's not going in the right direction, as you see. So I went back home just for a weekend to visit with some family and friends and kind of regroup kind of thing. And I was talking to a good friend of mine. Her name was Renee. And to kind of backtrack just a little bit, Renee was the one, she and I would go to the bars a lot, you know, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights. You know how those days are, and you know, when you graduate from high school, you kind of want to go out and do stuff, and we'll leave it at that, the stuff. So when I got back and I was talking to her, and I was telling her about all my struggles, she said, "Did you ever think about asking Jesus for help?" Well, I'm sitting there going, what the hell is she talking about? I didn't grow up in the church, so I mean, this is like something real foreign to me. And so I was like, man, she's just full of it. So I got back on the plane that afternoon, and she'd given me some book to read. And I wish I knew what that title was, because it made such an impact on me. I flew back to A&M that afternoon, and I remember to this day, it was February the 10th, 1985. And I said, all right, Jesus, I don't know how I'm going to get out of this, but I need your help. And I'll never forget that peace at that very moment. I can tell you the exact time and exact place. It was on the plane between Dallas and College Station. And I remember that as vivid as I'm sitting here or standing here in front of y'all right now. And so after that, I went back to A&M and realized, you know what, this engineering thing, I like it, but it's not something I want to do. For one, I'm obviously not good at it being a 56 and then a 36. So I withdrew from A&M and went back to Amarillo to kind of figure out, all right, what's the next phase? And so I got to thinking, I thought, okay, well, and that's about as far as I got. And so, you know, Renee said, I went back and I was talking to her a little bit more. And she said, well, you know, God's going to He'll give you something. You know, He'll provide a path. Mind you, again, I'm still sitting here going, I didn't grow up in the church. And so I'm still thinking she's my barroom buddy. And here she's saying all this stuff to me. And she was right. Because within a couple of weeks after I got back to Amarillo, God started giving me a desire to read the Bible. I had to go out and buy one. I didn't have one. A little while later, He gave me a desire to want to go to a church. Hadn't talked to anybody about it. Had no clue what kind of church, so I basically tried, I think, all the denominations out there. Presbyterian, Methodist, went to this one church, loved the pastor. He was really great. And then one Sunday I was there, this other person over here started talking in a language I had no clue what this was. And then somebody else obviously was interpreting this language, And so, mind you, this person who's never grown up in a church before and hearing this language over here, I was like, what the heck? And then the next thing is you see people dancing down the aisles. So obviously now that y'all understand this, it's a Pentecostal church. And I was like, this is not for me. So after that, I had gotten a job at a credit union there in Amarillo. And my boss, Sherry, she was saying, she knew I was looking for a church. She had been after me for months. She said, just come to my husband's Bible study on Sunday mornings. It's a group for 30 to 35-year-old couples. Just come. And I'm sitting there in my early 20s going, and I'm single going, are you kidding me? She said, just come. So I did, and Steve was one of those. He made the Bible come to life, and that's when I first started seeing God working in the Bible and how that it's not just words, you read in a book, but it's more about how he worked in other people's lives throughout history and how you can apply those words to your life today. And so during that time, I made the decision I was going to go back to A&M. And so I thought, okay, accounting. I took an accounting course there at Amarillo Junior College, loved it. I was like, all right, we're in our element now. So I went back, but right before I left for A&M, one of the ladies that was in the Bible study group there, by the way, I finally joined a Southern Baptist church. Just a little backtrack. When I first started looking at this whole process, I was like, I am not going to become a Southern Baptist. It wasn't anything against them. It was the biggest church in town. And so I was like, this is just not for me. And lo and behold, I ended up joining the church. So, and I swear, God's got some kind of funny sense of humor, and I don't get it all the time. So right before I went to A&M, one of the ladies, her name was Nancy, she took me to lunch, and she said, I need you to promise me something. She says, when you get down there, I need you to go to the Baptist Student Union. Just check it out, noon Bible study. So I said, okay, I'll do it. And for those of you who can't read in the back, as I'm putting these cards down, there are names on each of these cards of the people that were influencing my life during that time frame. And so this one is Steve and Sherry, Kim, Nancy, and Debbie. So I did go to the BSU. I walked in the door, and there wasn't hardly anybody in there yet. It was just about, a few minutes before noon Bible study. Most classes hadn't got out yet. And this lady came up the hallway, and she said, I haven't seen you. I'm Susan. I said, hi, I'm Michele. I'm just transferred in from Amarillo College. She went, I'm in charge of transfer students. Come, let's go sit and talk. And I'm sitting there going, okay. And Susan, she was the associate director there, and I can't tell you how many hours over the next 3 years I was there. I would sit in her office. She put a lot of hours in prayer into me and discipled me. That will, I'm forever grateful. Other people that were there, there was Barbara, who was countlessly listened to me being frustrated about A&M classes. You walk in, first of all, there's 300 people in an auditorium. I came from Amarillo College where we had maybe 10 to 20 students per class, so that was pretty overwhelming. There was everybody from, I can name several at BSU, Mike, A, Beth, Krista, and I can just go on and on with names. These are the people who helped me to grow while I was there. It was during this time also that the BSU director, Mike, he helped me learn what it meant as far as missions. You know, the first time he says, why don't you come to we're going to Mexico for right there, first week in January to do missions down there. And I was like, okay. I'd never done this before. God, it was so cold that week. And we had no heat in the church that we stayed at. I don't remember what happened, but it was cold. He taught me what it meant to be going out and serving people. And that doesn't necessarily mean, and you spending time, because I didn't speak Spanish. I had 3 years in high school, but my Spanish was not very conversational enough where I could talk to them. But missions is not just about that, it's also about serving as far as helping them to build churches, put Bible study curriculum together for them. It can be, anything from serving food. He also encouraged me to go on a summer missions trip. And this was for 12 weeks in Toledo, Ohio. And so for 12 weeks, we taught vacation Bible school for 12 weeks, me and my partner. And there were 2 weeks where it was a morning session and an evening session. I've had more vacation Bible school. I think I'm done. That was a lot of vacation Bible schools. But it was also a great time getting to know the different people, because these were all very small churches. So that was great. After that, Mike intervened again. He says, have you ever thought about being a journeyman? A journeyman with the International Mission Board through Southern Baptist, you could go overseas for 2 years and serve. And so I was graduating with an accounting degree. I was like, I've got an accounting degree. What the heck am I going to do? He says, they need accountants. I said, okay. So I applied. And I got an appointment and spent 2.5 years actually in Guatemala. And y'all, that was an amazing time in my life. It was in Guatemala is where I learned what it means to be a family. And when I say a family, I'm not talking about biological family, but I'm talking about a family as far as your brothers and sisters in Christ. And what it means to be there to support. When you're a single female in a Hispanic country, that's very difficult. They had a really hard time understanding that I'm a single female, I didn't bring a spouse, you didn't come down here with your family, you're living by yourself. That's a foreign concept to them. And so the missionaries, they became my family. And there's so many different things that they taught me. Loving unconditionally, being able, to serve in a church where I can speak the language, but I'm not fluent. But again, by the way, taught vacation Bible school again. This time was in Spanish. That was even harder. And, it was just amazing how all of that worked. It was during that time I got to lead a women's Bible study group. They all spoke English. So when you get appointed to be a missionary or go anywhere you go, it can be anything that God's going to lead you to do. I made the mistake of saying to somebody when I first got there that I had led, I was in charge of getting all the praise music done for all of the noon Bible studies. We have noon Bible study at BSU 3 days a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. So it was my job to get all of that lined up. And then I had also directed a small praise team. And so when they found that out, they went, you know what, our Christian Academy for all the missionary kids, we need a choir teacher. So You know, when you know a little bit about something, you are now the expert. So I taught choir for 2 years. Mind you, I have an accounting degree, so keep this in mind. But we had a great time. There was one young lady in the group, she ended up getting cancer, and her arm had to be amputated. And that was hard. But she was able, she went back to the States, and she came back without her arm. But the love of that choir group and the support amongst us, because we had grown very close, you know, we were able to encourage her and uplift her, because she was just in high school. And as y'all well know, high school students, you know, images, everything. There are so many families and people in Guatemala. I couldn't name all of them, so we'll just leave some of them. So while I was there, I thought, okay, God's leading me. We're going to go back to the States. And I felt like he was leading me to be a counselor, to go back to the missionaries and be a counselor on the field. When I was in Guatemala, I worked at what's called the Area Baptist Mission Office. So I was not affiliated with any of the countries. My office, we were in charge of the financials from Panama to Mexico and Canada. And I still don't know how Canada got grouped with us. But because I wasn't in the individual office, I had several people would come to me with just whatever's going on in their life. And so it was through those experiences I thought, okay, that's where God's leading me. And so when I came back to the States, I went to Southwestern Seminary and got my degree in marriage and family counseling and religious education, because I thought I would be going back on the mission field. Well, at the end of that, God had other things in mind. He wanted me to stay here in the States. That was one of those moments where you kind of question God, going, all right, you sent me to seminary. I thought you wanted me to do this, but you want me to stay. So I said, okay. So I ended up being a counselor just actually right up the road here at Tate Springs Baptist Church. Did that for about 4 or 5 years, whatever. And I was also working with the Warm Place. If you're not familiar with the Warm Place, it is a grief support center for kids and their families. It's free. WARM stands for What About Remembering Me? So if you know of any families, refer them. If you want to know more, please come see me. It's a great place. So I did that on the side, and I had taken a job at a company, the company I just retired from after 22 years. It was an Israeli-owned defense company. That was my bread and butter while I did these 2 other efforts on the side. And so I thought, okay, God, this is where you've led me, so that's where I went. So there came a point, though, where I was like, okay, God, you have continued to lead me down these paths when I think I was going this way, but you ended up taking me this way. And so I was like, I don't get this. And so I really came to, I guess, what you call a crisis of belief, to the point where I even left the Southern Baptist Church. I went to another denomination and was just wrestling with, everything. And God put people in my place or in my life to help me navigate those questions. I'm a huge believer. Ask the questions. Ask the tough questions. Sometimes you need to argue with God. Now when you hear me say that, keep in mind that you may be arguing, but He's helping you to understand. And He will get you there if you keep asking questions. So I finally was able to resolve a lot of that and realized, it's not about where you think the goal is. It's the journey along the way. And it's that journey along the way that led me to this church, which I totally adore. I'll never forget when I first walked in the door, Prissy greeted me at the very front door. She says, I don't know you. I'm Prissy. And of course, I said, well, it's my first time. That's all you got to say. She took it from there. And, she introduced me to so many different people. I remember, God, I can't even tell you how many different people. There were so many people that made an influence in me. And y'all are still making an influence in my life. I can name so many people here from, I don't even want to say names because there's so many and I don't want to leave anybody out. But you can influence people without even saying anything to them. Sometimes it's about somebody is watching you and they see a characteristic in you or you see a characteristic in them that makes you realize, you know what? That's something I need to put in my life. Or it could be somebody holding you accountable. I don't like those. I've had a few people in this church who do hold me accountable, and that's been hard because I don't do that well. But these people love me for who I am, and they know that's difficult for me. I want to leave you with a verse. It's in Ecclesiastes in chapter 4. Verses 9 through 10, it says, 2 are better than 1 because they have a good return for their work. If one falls down, his friend can help him up. But pity the man who falls and has no one to help him up. We have a great church family. We are blessed in so many different ways. We are a family, therefore, yes, we do have our dysfunctional things, as any family does. But at the end of the day, we are still a family. And I encourage you during this Christmas season to go and reach out beyond these walls. Because there's so many people who don't have a family, like we're blessed with. They may not come to our church. This may not be the church for them. And I'm a huge believer that's okay. They need to find a place, though, that's going to fit for them. Meanwhile, you can still be a support to them. And that's huge, especially this time of the year. As you can see, I have several names going across. These people here have helped me to become the person I am today. So I want to encourage you, who are the people in your life that have helped you to become the person you are today in your walk with Christ? And the next question is, what can you do going forward to be that for somebody else? Amen.
Loving God, thank you for this night and for church family, a family bound by faith, where great people come along who bring us seasoning and flavoring for the gift of life, who bring us balance and perspective that we cannot find on our own. Thank you for this night and for Michele's journey and her discipleship in our midst. Send us forward in this thrilling season of the year by your grace. Amen.